Okay, I think we're officially live now, so be on your best behavior.
I will.
Okay. All right, so we have. Oh, hold on. Before we start, I just got to make sure I say your last name right. Batista?
Perfect. Yes,
Batista.
perfect.
All
Yep,
right.
yep, yep.
So we'll just start over again.
Okay, cool.
All right, so we have Marni Batista here on the show, and you're really interesting, Marni. You are a certified personal. I can't even talk. A certified
I'm a personal pan pizza.
a certified professional dating and relationship expert, and you've
Yep.
written for all these super high publications like the Huffington Post, Your Tango, I think Yahoo even. You've been featured on CBS, ABC. You're like a celebrity. Seriously.
I'm internet famous.
Anyways, she's here to talk to you about finding the right man. And this is a really good fit because you have a book coming out, and I think it's a free book, right?
It is right now.
Yeah, so you can go to your website and download the free book. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you get into this dating coach type thing? I know I read your book, so I know you have like a really interesting story, but if you want, you can just kind of get the Cliff Notes version of how you came to the conclusion that this is what you wanted to do with your life.
Okay, I will. Well, first of all, can we curse on this show or do I need to keep it rated G?
You can curse. You
Okay.
can curse. Let's go X-rated today.
Okay, great. So basically, so when I first started writing, the reason that I became a dating coach was that I wanted to write a book, right? And I think I said in the intro of my book that I've been working on this book for like 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
you did.
So the first version of this book was called "The Fucked Up Girl's Guide to Finding the Love She Deserves," because and for anyone who like sees yourself as a smart woman, like you've got it going on in your life, and you sit there and you look at your relationships, and you're having your breakfast or brunch with your girlfriends, and you're like, this is so fucked up. Like, this is so fucked up. Like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with him? Right? And that's really how I came to this journey, was because like it didn't make sense. I'm like this nice Jewish girl from Iowa. I'm smart. I get good grades. I have parents that quote unquote like have a healthy relationship. Like there was nothing obvious. Yet I had this propensity to choose men who were really, really bad for me. And it landed me in a marriage for 17 years with a guy who I, have these amazing 3 kids, but I felt like shit that entire time. I felt like there was nothing I could do to get the love that I deserve. Like I was always broken. There's like a scene in the book which really captures just like my complete feeling of like ineptness in everything I did, even things that were typically sort of like mom or wife type of duties, so to speak. Anyway, so I get divorced and I'm like, woohoo, I have this big do-over, and I freaking do the same thing, like better looking, younger version, but same guy, different face. So it was then that I sort of had my moment where I just thought, like, if I don't change for myself, I have to change for my 3 daughters. Because if I can't get unfucked up for myself because I don't care about myself that much, I literally will transmit this, contagion, right, to my 3 daughters. And that was really the inspiration that helped me get on the journey to really date with dignity, find self-love, and then meet an amazing, amazing guy, my husband. But in the middle of that, when I was in the journey, I was like, I need to tell other women because I don't want someone else to have a moment like I did on the, in front of my driveway begging my ex-husband to love me. Like, that's so fucked up.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's how I started writing the book. And then someone said a book isn't a business. And I was like, you're right. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm meant to do. So here I am talking to you.
Well, I have to say I read the book and it was really interesting. You were pretty respectful to your ex-husband, and I have to say most people trash their exes, But I really found it interesting. You were married for 17 years. Was this kind of a deterioration along the way where maybe, I know you got married young, right?
Yeah, I was 22 when I got married, and I was 19 when I met him. So it was sort of like, I have a daughter who's going to be 21. If she came to me and was like, I'm getting married, I'd be like, hell no, you're not. And my mom was like, yay, we'll plan a wedding.
No.
So yeah, here's the thing. I was for my book, I was actually going through all these old photos and kind of reminiscing and reading journal entries and things like that. And I think, to the best of my 19 and 20, 21-year-old brain, I thought this was the right thing for me. I didn't really know anything better.
Yeah.
And but what I didn't talk about in the book is like right after I got married in August in Iowa, and then we had this honeymoon, and we moved to Chicago. And I was looking for a job, and my ex-husband, went off to work every day, and I was so miserable. We had this apartment. It was near the elevated train, and I just remember sitting in my apartment, like, sweating, and like the apartment was shaking, like when that train would go by, and I felt like it was rattling my soul. And I was watching soap operas, like, eating candy, like that's how bad it was. And I was like, I'm supposed to be so happy because I'm in this relationship, right? And I think so many women get attached to the idea of getting married, the idea of that guy. And there's that voice inside that says, this is not a good move, sister. And you're like, never mind, la, 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 And I saw a freaking ad on television that said, like, are you depressed? Are you sad? Like, call 1-800, like 1-800 find a therapist. And I did. And it's actually a miracle, because that was sort of the beginning of me figuring out how to live through that marriage. And then ultimately, I couldn't make it work. I just couldn't make it work. We couldn't make it work. And it got nasty, and it got gnarly, and it got really messy. And I just had to get out because I was numb.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. And I think a lot of the people listening to this can relate, because they are going through breakups, which is very, very difficult. And one of the things that I really liked about you was the fact that you admit that, okay, you kind of jumped from, so before you got married, you dated a guy. I think you were like, you were like 14, and he was like in college.
Yep.
So you bad boys, right? You're into the bad boys. Totally
bad boys. Totally into bad boys.
You jump from him to the marriage, 17 years. Okay. That's a long time. And then after the marriage, you get back into the dating pool where you said, okay, I've got this do-over, and you fall for the wrong guy again. Now, a lot of people don't admit that. And I really like that you admit that, because really, self-reflection is kind of what it takes to come to this conclusion. Okay, I maybe need to step back and maybe kind of think more about how I choose the man I date. So let's kind of shift to that. So how did you choose how did you undergo this epiphany, so to speak, of your selection process? Because I think that's really where your expertise can come into play here.
Well, yeah, I think, so what I know is that I wasn't choosing at all. Mm-hmm. Right. I was, my self-worth was sort of so low, that if you like me, I'm into you. Mm-hmm. Like you call me back after we have sex, you're a keeper.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely need to raise the standards up a little bit.
Yeah. But that was sort of like where I was, and even when I was dating in college, I was like, I remember having those moments of like trying to convince myself that the nice guy was good, but there was no chemistry, there was no connection. So the first thing I would say is that we want to be in a place, especially after a breakup, of deciding that the next time I'm going to choose. I'm not just going to pick by default.
Okay.
Because he likes us, or because he's got a better job. There's this, I call it the relative charm factor, right? Like, compared to my ex, this guy's,
you're doing the comparison.
Better, right? Like, compared to that. And so I think we have to be in choice. And the second piece of being in choice when we're getting back to dating is we want to choose from what we want, not from what we don't want. Mm-hmm. And if you're online dating and you go and you can just read the profiles, and I talk about this a little bit in my book, you can see who's writing a profile from what they don't want. And basically it's a commercial that describes their last crap relationship, right? Like, no drama. Guess what? That person had a lot of drama.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Nobody flaky, and you have to have a good relationship with your mom, The last guy was flaky and had a bad relationship with his mom. Okay, so you want to really read between the lines, and you want to choose somebody who isn't just better than your ex. You want to start reflecting and saying, like, who do I want? Like, what are the values that I'm looking for? And be in that place of consciousness and choice.
Yeah, so I guess what I would have to say to that is one of the things that I've experienced is people have a really tough time. So they're set in their beliefs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They have a really tough time overcoming that. So sometimes I'll hear this horrible story where maybe the woman's dating a married man, right? And he broke up with her. She's kind of the other woman, right?
Yep.
And I'm saying, well, maybe it's time to move on, but they don't want to. So what would you say to someone like that? Like, how would you get them from that mindset to maybe the mindset of moving on and finding the right guy?
Oh, wow. Actually in my book, there's a scene where I actually have that conversation, right? And it was actually, my ex-boyfriend's ex-wife who says, like, sister, like, you're worth more. So here's the thing. I coach a lot of women, really smart women who are involved with people who are in relationships, whether, they're married or they're just dating someone else. And I have seen the struggle, and it is a painful struggle. And it doesn't matter if your brain knows it's the right thing. And so one of the things that's really true in that situation is we get really good at coping and rationalizing. Mm-hmm. And coping and rationalizing comes up because we are trying to avoid our feelings. And so if you could just sort of do like feelings 101 and think about how it makes you feel to be the second choice, and allow it to sink in and not just push it away with fear that this is the best thing you've ever had, something is better than nothing, and allow your feelings. What I would want you to tap into is what I call righteous anger.
Righteous anger. I like it. It's got a righteous sound. Well,
it does, because people avoid, like, I don't want to be angry. And these guys that are, cheating, most of them really do have shitty relationships. And they are nice guys. They're not like evil humans, right? They're unhappy and they're in their own dysfunction. But the truth is, deep down somewhere, you're pissed.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you've been cheated on, too, right?
Yeah, and you've been made promises.
Right. Yeah.
And you've been stood up, and you've been second priority. And it's usually when a client allows herself to get into that righteous anger that she allows herself to be mad, to take a stand and say, you know what? Here's the bottom line. It's either this or it's not going to happen anymore. And, I've had clients, this takes like a year to extricate, and I have clients do it in 3 months. It's your choice how much pain. There's that quote that says, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
I like the quote.
Right? So you're going to suffer, sister. You're going to suffer now. You're going to suffer in a year. You don't want, I was in that place of back and forth, and I'm getting a divorce. I'm not getting a divorce. I'm moved out. I'm moving back in for 2 years of my life. And here's the last thing I want to say about that is, you're practicing shit you don't need to practice, which is putting your walls up, having your guard up. Because every time you're in that like sweet, amazing spot when he's like totally with you, and then the next day he like disappears for 4 days, you put your guard up. You don't need to practice that.
Yeah, it's sort of like just drilling the habits that you should not be drilling, so to speak.
Well, you're actually reinforcing neural pathways that are going to prevent you from intimacy. And the bigger picture is this. Whoa, sorry about that.
Hey,
the bigger picture is this. There's a reason why you're attracted to a man who's emotionally unavailable. And guess what? It's because you're emotionally unavailable. He's perfect for you. That guy is perfect for you. You're unavailable guy. Right? So is that who you want to be? Do you want to be emotionally unavailable? Because even if you get it together with him, it's not going to be epic, amazing love, because he's still married and you don't feel emotionally safe.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up the cheating thing, because that's something we see a lot here too. And you have some really interesting stories relating to that as well. So you've been cheated on, correct?
I've been cheated on, yeah. It's awful.
Yeah, so someone who's going through that, how do they cope? What are some of the things they can do? other than just sitting and eating a tub of ice cream every night.
Right. Well, let me tell you what didn't work. So you'll anyone who's been in this situation, you're gonna laugh. This was my best move back in the day. I kept all the tissues. Okay, that I was crying. Like he broke up with me. I was like, I'm in this is my office, is in my room, and in that bed, and I just was, how it is, girls, right? You're like, and tissues everywhere. And so my best plan at the time was like, I'm going to save these tissues in a drawer with a photo of us. And at any time, I feel...
That's clever. I like that.
It didn't work.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
I just had a drawer full of snotty tissue.
I like the idea. I mean, I could see how, like, logically on paper it seems like it would work.
Right?
I guess it didn't.
But here's the thing. What I love about that story is that it shows how creative one can be to, like, avoid doing the hard work, which is accepting the truth.
Yeah. Accepting the truth can be difficult, especially when it's not a truth you want to accept.
Totally. So one of the exercises, this was what I did. So I turned it into a whole process for my clients. So I'm going to share it with your listeners. It's called the wrecking ball process. And basically what you do, the short version is you make a list of everything that is wrong with this relationship. Okay. Like reality, like, he doesn't show up all the time. Besides the fact that, he cheated on you. There's probably other things in your relationship where if you could like custom design your ideal man, he wouldn't be that guy. So you make that list. Then you put it away. Okay. So this is not like a one and done. This is like you have to like kind of reflect a little bit, sit with that, see how it feels.
Yeah, sometimes you don't feel the same way too when I guess you take the list back. You're thinking, oh, maybe that wasn't as bad.
Exactly. So you have that list, you put it away, you come back to it, and then you make a list of, and do this like 2 days later, your ideal relationship, the qualities and characteristics of the guy that you would like to be with. Whether it's you would like him to change, which probably isn't going to happen, or the next guy. Okay. So you do that, and then you look at both lists, right? And you look at the truth about this person that you've been with, and you look at what it is that you want in your highest vision for your relationship. And then I take people through a closed eye experience, but what you can do is sort of do it yourself, and it's to close your eyes and see this guy, as you see him, like on a pedestal. Like there's a giant... Just imagine, because that's if your guy's cheating, you have him on a pedestal if you're not pissed about it.
Yeah, that's so true.
And I want you to think about it. Like, think how it's kind of, because we have to get to righteous anger, right? So here you are, you're little you, and you've put this fucking guy that told you he loved you, because he probably did, and he's like, the David statue times 10,000. Okay, and then in your mind's eye, see yourself how small you feel compared to that guy.
Yeah, visualization can really, really work. I know they did a study on Olympic athletes, and they made them like, I think it was like gymnasts. We just had the Olympics and everything. They made the gymnasts like pretend they were going through the routine in their head. And
totally.
They did a test versus the gymnasts who didn't visualize it. And the visualization actually netted better scores than the other one. So it actually can work. So it's a great tip. It
totally works, and it changes the pathway. So then what you do is you then imagine yourself with a baseball bat. My clients like to imagine bat. Like
I feel like Carrie Underwood's coming in here.
Exactly. Or a crane, like a wrecking ball crane. It's really good. And you imagine yourself climbing up into this wrecking ball, and like there's one button, and it's the pendulum.
Smash
it. And you do, and it's great. Like, do it in a quiet time, and you can just say to yourself, like, and for this, and you like, because expression is actually tapping into that righteous anger. It's all buried inside you right now, and so to have that cathartic release, you need to do an expression. And so, closing your eyes, imagine that you're doing that, knocking him off the pedestal, and then going through it might take you 5 minutes, it might take you 20 minutes, and then being in that place of looking at like, what do I do now when I don't feel small?
Now,
and make your next move from that place.
yeah, I love it. Now, we use cheating as an example here, but can this happen? Let's say the guy didn't cheat, but he was just maybe a douche to the woman. This can work for that as well.
It totally can work. And what's great is that once I created this little process, at the time, I think it was, gosh, now it's probably like 4 years ago. So it's been tried and true by a lot of women. My daughter at the time was 18.
Okay, so she's at that age.
Yeah, and she had a total like it was her first moment of like understanding what it's like to be with a good guy versus a not good guy, and she was having a hard time like intellectually letting go of that, and she did this process.
And it worked.
And it worked. So it doesn't matter if you're 65 or 18. It worked, and it was a pivot for her because what she realized is that I am not small.
Yeah, I really like that. And it's interesting because a lot of our listeners can be 18, just in high school. We do have some 35, 40-year-old women, which let's shift to them now because I've been interviewing experts for the past month or so, and one of the most common things I hear about women or women who are going through divorces and haven't dated in a long time, so they're getting into the dating scene. What would you recommend to women like that? So that they're not used to the reality of the digital age now.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Well, first of all, the best way to get over someone is not to get under someone else.
I like that. I like it. Clever.
Okay. So do not be like, fuck him, I'm going to go be with someone else. Okay. That is not
the best route to take, perhaps.
It's not the best route. Okay. So, the first thing is I always say also the slower you go, the faster you get there. Okay. So if you just got a divorce, do not start dating next week. Okay. You will be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right? It is a little complicated. It's a little crazy. So you want to go through, and I talk about these 3 steps in my book, really looking at how can you release yourself from your past, because one thing that's really important is your story about your past does not define you, but what you do next could define you. Right?
Okay.
So you want to do this next go round like from a completely different space. So make sure that you are really free from the stories and the paradigms and the rules and all the stuff that landed you in that marriage, and really take that time to work on yourself so that you are relationship ready, which means that you have a really strong foundation of self-worth, which is different than self-esteem, and I talk about that in the book, that you are really over your story about your past, and that you know what you're looking for, right? And you're clear on your relationship goals. Yeah. And then you start dating.
Yeah, you bring up, every time you talk, I just keep thinking of new stuff that I've heard. So like there was this really, really interesting, I guess, tactic or something that people can use if they're carrying baggage from their past. And that's literally to take a really heavy brick and carry it around with you, just so you can feel how much it feels like to have the baggage with you. And just do it for like a month or so, just so you can feel how heavy it is. And then once you can kind of understand, okay, this is insane that I'm holding on to this, you can throw the brick away and realize how good it feels. So the visualization thing just popped in my head. So.
Totally. And that's really good because, I used to watch that show, How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, I love it. Love it,
right?
Yeah.
And there's a scene, and I think it's Ted Mosby because, poor Ted,
Always
right?
Ted.
Always Ted. And he's on a date, and I think the woman, it's either he's got behind him or she's got behind him. They're at dinner.
Oh, the baggage. Yeah.
Like there's suitcases
right,
and trunks, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I call that leaking. Like you can have like the blow dry and the makeup, and you lost weight, and you're like feeling really good, and you go on the date, and if you're leaking, if you've got that baggage, a quality guy can sniff it out like a dog can find where the dog treat is. I mean, you're a guy, right? There's just some like energy or vibe. You're
no. It's not so much that. It would always be these subtle hints that I'd be on a date, for example, and the woman would start talking about her ex. And I would think, oh, God, she's going to start talking about him nonstop. And then sure enough, that's what would happen. So, yeah, there's some, I don't know if it was a vibe so much as just the cues I would pick up from that kind of turned me off,
It's a total turn off. It's like you're venting.
Right?
It's
exactly.
Like nobody listens. It's like a fresh person to hear the story of what an asshole my ex was.
Right.
Yeah, and nobody wants to nobody wants to be
No.
that date. Nobody
No.
wants to be that date. So you really do. You have to like release all that. And then when you feel like really clear and you've gone through these 3 steps, and then you can start dating. And when you start dating, you want to do it, I call it this rejuvenation, right? You date like you've never been burned before.
Okay. So
Right.
no walls up, have the walls down, just be open, I guess, to what's going to happen.
Yeah, dating is like you're curious,
Yeah.
right? Like there's no such thing as a bad date, really. I mean, one of my favorite bad dates, which wasn't a bad date because it's like one of my funniest stories ever, was I went on a date. It was an online date. I met this guy and we're like sitting in a restaurant and we're having dinner and stuff. And he's like, "Do you want to see a really funny video of my cat?" And I'm like, "Okay." Like,
Okay.
whatever. And he shows me this video, and his cat basically sits like a person, like a Buddha.
Okay.
Okay. And I was like, "Oh, that's really funny." And then he kept showing me videos of the cat. And then he kept showing me videos of the cat.
Oh.
So at that point, I'm like, this is like either really bad or freaking hilarious. So I just went with this is hilarious. So now I'm going to interview you as like, you are the most interesting sort of odd cat guy I've ever met. And so I just totally like took it out of the date category and went into the like, what makes like you're really into your cat? Have you always been into your cat? Do you have like edited videos of the cat? Do you have a YouTube channel on your cat? Right? Like that was hilarious. It was a great night. Definitely not a great date.
So it turned into something positive as opposed to, oh no, it was another dud. Maybe you're in a negative mindset and that carries over to the next date.
It's a great, I mean, every date that I had, I'm just like thinking back, and I'm sure we can all do that, you know, like that was bad was just like, okay, this was interesting.
Well, I maybe have one story that so I went on a date once with a girl and I broke my foot. So
oh gosh,
not sure I can.
no, there wouldn't be that. Although recently on if you are a Bachelor in Paradise fan,
Unfortunately,
right.
I'm afraid
because you're
to admit it.
married, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All good husbands watch Bachelor.
Yeah. Hey, I actually kind of got into it. I'm not gonna lie. I'll own up to it.
I know my husband's into it too. There was a character there, Evan, who freaking used getting injured
sickness
to woo his girl.
You know, at first I hated that guy. I'm not gonna lie. He was so annoying, but he kind of grew on me a little bit. Like
He was a quality guy. He
Yeah.
was a little nerdy, but he was there. Okay, we should do a whole show. Like when it comes back on, let's just do recaps.
right.
It's like my favorite.
We'll get rich that way.
Exactly. So yeah, but a medical thing could not be a bad date, maybe.
I guess so.
Okay.
So, all right, your book, The Quality Man. Let's really talk about this. What is maybe your 3 best tips for you're on the date with a guy, sitting across from him. It's going pretty well, but you are maybe a little uncertain. What are some of the things that a woman can do on a date to really determine if this guy's the real deal or not?
Okay, so the first thing is you do not want to go into a date interviewing him to see if he is a quality guy.
Okay.
Because guys that feel like, you know, and I'm sure your guy friends have told you, like, they're like, dude, it was like subtly trying to ask me where my apartment is or what my job is or where I went to college or, you know, like what kind of vacations I go on. Right? And they're like, she's so trying to find out, like, you know, how much I have in my 401k. So you don't want to do that. What I would do is pick 5 values, and I call them non-negotiables, and we talk about how to do this in the book. Pick your 5 and go out on the date doing what I call data dating, right? You're just collecting information in a fun way to see if this guy and you share values. So let's say family is your value. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, like where did you grow up, but what's your like favorite memory from childhood?
That's a good question.
Right?
I feel like I want to answer it right now.
Yeah, right? Or let's say you love travel. Like, where's somewhere you traveled that, like, just scared the crap out of you, but, like, you totally did it? Or what's your funniest, like, did you ever stay in a hostel? What's your funniest hostel story? Like, right? You want to have conversation that is really just to get someone relaxed and talking about things that make them happy, like good memories and good times.
Yeah.
Right? You also don't want to, I'm giving you the don'ts. Do not ask like, so you're divorced. Tell me about that. That's like,
yeah,
don't
direction.
want that. And my all-time big don't. So, how's it going for you online?
If you met online, I guess.
Yeah, if you met online, like, how do you like Match.com? How's Bumble going for you? Like, be creative. Think about your values and what you really want to know about the person and get a fun conversation going about that.
So what are some things that you can do to come up with your values? Because I know a lot of women, I'm always trying to teach them, okay, text your ex this kind of thing. Don't text your ex this kind of thing. And it's funny, there was a woman that I just did an episode on who took my advice, but she took it like out of order, and she started texting her ex like sex stuff, like the first thing back. And he was like, he like erased her number and was like, who the F is this? So what are some things that women can do before they maybe start doing the data thing to come up with their values? What are some
So one of the things to do, and I walk you through it step by step, is sometimes people don't even know what values are.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have kids or you're an auntie or something like that, you can think about like, what are 5 things I would want my kids to grow up believing, or how they would like see the world, you know? If you don't, another way to think about it is if you were giving advice to someone about these 5 sort of ways to be in the world, like what you hold important that would make the world a better place, what are those 5 things and what would they be? Like, you know, maybe for you, it's like being financially responsible, whatever that means for you.
Yeah, good guess.
Yeah, right? Or adventure.
Okay.
Right? Like a travel and adventure was one of mine, and my husband and I are like totally on the same page around travel and adventure, and we spent our money on travel and adventure. We taught it to our kids. So that was a really big one. Some people are really like, they have a big value around personal development. Okay. You can call it personal development, spirituality. If I have clients who are like really, really have a value around their specific religion, right? And that's one of their values. So, think about what is important to you and what do you want to leave behind. Is like, you know, Jane was really all about this.
What are people going to say about you at your funeral, maybe?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like she was really all about integrity. She was all about travel, or she is, you know. And play with it, by the way, because as you go out dating men, and by the way, this makes dating so much more fun because now you're just trying to see like, are these my values? Do we have a match? And here's the other great thing about when you're dating for values, you can't decide that on the first date.
So it takes a few dates to really
It takes a few dates. So you can't discard someone right away because most people are generally awkward and nervous on a first date, especially if it involves eating sushi. Just saying.
So
there's like,
So let's assume you have like, let's say intelligence, like you want your significant other to be really intelligent. What are, because that's pretty broad. That can mean a lot of different things, intelligent and maybe book smart as opposed to street smart. Who knows? What kind of question can you ask around that? Because I think this is probably one of the best tips that you've said so far. So I feel like I really want to give people the scope of how to accomplish this.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's a great thing is that, first of all, when you say intelligence, just like you did, you're like, wait, what do I mean by intelligence?
Okay, so you have to kind of zone in on what your personal, so it can't be so broad. It has to be maybe just specifically to what you want.
Exactly. And here's the litmus test. And I say this to my clients all the time because they give me their 5. We have 5 non-negotiables or 5 values because I say there are 5 fights you're never going to have, right? Doesn't mean you don't get other stuff, but there are these 5 things. So what I always ask you is, great, so intelligence. What's he going to do over the course of dating him for 3 months, let's say, that would show you he's got an intelligence value that matches yours? Okay, so he'd say like, yeah, I'm going to this book reading by da-da-da. Or, hey, do you want to come over and watch the debate?
Okay.
Or for someone else, intelligence might be spreadsheets.
Okay.
Right?
A little
Like,
boring, but okay.
yeah, but right, like, can you help me, like, like someone might say that their value is really around showing that they're smart because they're up on technology or they're up in business or they're up in
Okay.
whatever. So before you do it, you just ask yourself, so great, I'm going to date a date, which means I'm going to collect data. So what am I looking for that shows me not just on the date, but in between dates and how he acts and what he's talking
So
about.
it's not just like asking a question to decipher the data. It's also paying attention to what data is there.
Exactly, because everybody puts on their online profile, their best version of themselves. So if someone says
Exactly, yeah.
they're nature, so one of my male clients, I used to coach men a long time ago, but I love this story. He had a test. And he would take women for coffee. We live in California, so he would take them for coffee by the beach. And they would all say, like, I'm into nature, but I can dress up and go out dancing.
So
right?
he would like put him to the test, I'm guessing.
He would. So after coffee, he'd say, do you want to walk on the beach? Okay. And some of those ladies would be like, it's kind of windy. My hair's going to mess
so into
up.
nature then.
I didn't wear the right shoes, right? And then some ladies were like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to carry my shoes and be windblown.
I like it.
Be careful, right? Because you want to collect data. That person might say they value nature, but if they're like, ew.
Actions speak louder than words, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a great tip. And probably it has to be personal to you when you're doing it, the data dating. So let's also shift gears here. Now, in the book, you talk about limiting beliefs.
Yes.
So for the listener, what is I can't even talk today. You got me all tongue-tied. The Ted Mosby thing.
I know. This is all over it.
Okay, all right. Limiting beliefs. What is it?
Limiting belief. Okay, a limiting belief really simply is a story that you make up that's not true. It's a misunderstanding you have. It's a rule that you have about a situation, people, the world, dating. So a limiting belief might be quality men only want to date women who are a size 4.
Okay.
Okay, a limiting belief might be there's no good men where I live.
Okay, I kind of get it. So limiting belief is basically something that you've told yourself that says, okay, I don't really have as good a chance because I'm not that.
Right. It's a condition that you've made up and you believe it is a rule for you, right? Like you believe it's not a limiting belief. And it's, I really like to use this little acronym BILLS because nobody likes bills.
Bills.
Beliefs inappropriate that limit your lifestyle.
Okay,
right?
I like it.
Literally limits your lifestyle.
Yeah,
if you have these beliefs. And so the question you want to ask yourself if you come up against one of these, we all have them, is how true is that really? Right? Like there's no good men in my town. And I usually say, so what happened is last night while you were sleeping, the quality man bomb went off. They all vanished into thin air. And now all that's left are like homeless, toothless men. And that is who you have to date. And women are like, well, that obviously didn't happen. And I'm like, well, obviously there are good men in your town. Just you're not seeing them.
Perfect segue. So let's assume you get over the limiting beliefs.
Okay.
Where can a woman go to meet the quality man?
Okay. Well, so in my book, I literally give you 33 places that you will never think of on your own that are not online. So if you're like, I hate online dating, you definitely want to get
Which
this
can
book.
be a limiting belief, by the way.
It's totally a limiting belief. Okay. So, but let me I want you to start thinking about it. First of all, quality men are everywhere. There isn't actually an island that they go on, Chris was on the island. His wife got
It's Florida.
boat.
It's Florida.
Exactly.
It's in Florida. But there's a hurricane coming, so no one's allowed in. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. All the quality men are taking cover. So quality men are everywhere. So what I want you to think about is two things. One is, what would it look like if you started looking to rule people in instead of ruling people out?
Okay. So.
Okay. And instead of saying he's not my type, which is a version of like, this doesn't apply to me, this guy isn't for me, start asking a better quality question. How could this guy be for me?
Okay.
How could this guy be for me? How could I get outside of what my type is? And that's a whole other conversation. But quality men, to find them, we're going back to the values conversation. So what is it that you care about and love about?
Let's say church.
Church, great. So be the person you want to attract. So not just go to church, but like, does your church have like community groups? Can you volunteer at your church? Go, like, you like church and adventure, go do a mission and meet somebody there who likes those same things. There's not a cute guy there. Doesn't matter. All those guys, no guys. Be the person you want to attract. Put your cab light on. Stop looking at your phone. Stop telling the story to yourself that there's no good men for you.
Now, it's interesting you talked about, let's say you go to the church group, there's not a good-looking guy there. Now, I don't know how it is for women, but I know men are a little bit more visual than women. So let's say that there's this common belief that, and I want you to kind of debunk it here. So
okay.
I'm kind of throwing you the softball.
Okay.
All right. So there's this common belief that women have that the better looking the guy, the worse the guy is, or he's not quality. And the uglier the guy, the more quality he is. Is that true?
Okay, well, so no, it's not true because there's no absolutes in humans. My husband is super good looking and super awesome, just by the way. And I know lots of women that I've worked with that have men that are super good looking and that are really, really awesome. Here's what I would say about that. How does that keep you safe? What does it say about you if that's your belief? Is it because you're actually intimidated by those guys? Is it
I
because
think that would probably be what it is for most women.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They make you feel uncomfortable and nervous.
And here's the craziest part, though. Men, speaking personally, I feel almost there's no way when I met my wife, there's no way that she was more nervous than I was. But she didn't think that, you know. But good-looking guys, they get nervous too.
They do. So here's a news flash, ladies. Men are human.
Yeah, we are.
They are human, and I think I do these man panels for some of my groups that I work with, and I get quality men of all different ages, and they get to ask them questions, and always their takeaway is like, "Wow, they're like really struggling with this stuff too." And so when you look at a man as like a fellow human that you want to connect with versus, is he going to be my husband?
Yeah.
The quality of connection is really just much better. And you might be saying, yeah, nobody dates like that. And so, okay, but you can. Because there's a guy out there who's looking for the top 10%. Right? Guys are savvy. They don't want drama either. They don't want someone who's insecure. They don't want, they don't want to play games either. Believe it or not, a quality guy is not into you being aloof, any of that. And I always say all you have to do is be 10% better than 90% of the people out there that are dating, and someone will notice you instantly.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to have.
Totally.
And I think a lot of women limit themselves with the limiting beliefs that you were talking about, thinking that, okay, the better looking the guy is, he's not going to be a quality man. So maybe they're limiting themselves by just thinking that.
Yeah. Well, totally. And so then they're going to leak that. Like if you go into it with a really handsome guy and you're a little intimidated and your paradigm, your mindset is you're guilty until proven innocent. Mm-hmm. Here's what happens, ladies. Like energy attracts like energy. So if you go into any kind of situation with what I call your boxing gloves up, which is like, don't F with me.
Right.
Like you're guilty until I know otherwise. Okay. So that's what we call like a conflict sort of energy. Now, guess what? The wrong guy is all about that.
Yeah.
A not quality guy is going to be like, let me get you. Let me prove to you. Like he is attracted to the fact that you don't trust him. A quality guy is not interested in that. He doesn't want to work that hard to sort of like break you down.
Oh, me personally, I always thought like, okay, falling in love should be easy. I shouldn't have to go through all this work just to convince someone to like me back, Yeah,
or be open or trust
right,
me. Or,
right.
Like who?
Because that could take years to break that kind of wall down,
Right. So quality guys aren't into that. So doing the whole, because reality is not The Bachelor, right? Where like,
Right.
the girl is, like, so.
Actually, my cousin was on The Bachelorette.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Really?
I'm embarrassed to tell you who it is because if you watch The Bachelorette, you'll know who he is.
Damn, now I gotta know.
Okay.
Put it in the show notes.
All
Okay.
right.
So if you're intimidated by someone because you think they're really good looking, like try an experiment and try and like be open and vulnerable. And like, on the first or second date, say, what, I'm in a place in my life where I'm actually looking for a relationship. I love my life. Where are you? Just ask.
Yeah, you have a lot of really great tips. I gotta say, it's pretty phenomenal. A lot of the stuff, I might steal it. No, I'm just
you
kidding.
can just totally. No, it's really, you know what? I just feel like, it took me, I'm 50. It took me like until I was like 38 to get a divorce and like 42 to meet my husband. And I told you my why was my 3 daughters. And I put this in the book, like I was here so that they wouldn't have broken pickers. And I see what I've told them, and I've spoken at colleges and lots of different ages of women. This shit just doesn't resolve itself. Mm-hmm. So if you got a bad boy thing, if you
got to do something about it, I think.
You do, because, for me, it was like, I love that you do the recovery, because I spent way too many years trying to get back guys that weren't right for me. And by the way, which I don't talk about in my book, my husband and I dated for 5 years, and then he broke up with me.
Current husband, right?
My current husband, yeah. And there was like 7 weeks that we broke up, and he actually moved out. And
oh no.
Yeah, and I went through my boyfriend, recovery. I probably did a lot of the things that you used to talk about doing. I gave him space, and we had a dialogue, and we revisited our values. And I had to work to make sure I wasn't really in my masculine. Like, if you don't know by now, then F you, right? Which is me protecting myself. And so let me tell you, for all of the people who are here because they want to get that guy back, the quality guy, if he's your guy, it will be not easy to get back together, but if you have that common goal, it's a beautiful process that makes you closer.
Yeah.
If he's not a quality guy, let him go.
Mm-hmm.
How somebody breaks up with you is a great way to tell if they're quality.
Yeah, it's a really good litmus test, like you said. And it's funny you say that, because the other week a woman contacted me saying that she got her ex back, and they were on their honeymoon. They got married and everything. But I compare that to someone else who's trying to get their ex back, and they're struggling and things aren't going well. Generally speaking, I've found that when it's almost a little bit easier to get them back. It's just like something was standing in the way that caused them or prevented them from committing. But it is a good litmus test, and it's a good point that you bring up, that sometimes you have to revisit the values and open the dialogue up, and it seems like that's what you did.
We totally did it, and it was really interesting because my now husband, his thing was like he didn't get marriage because his parents had been married for like 50 years, but he didn't really think it was like a great marriage, and he got to his own thing, which is like, if I get married, do I lose my freedom? Like, which is a totally normal guy thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had to just dialogue about it. And then he got to this place where he was like all about marriage, and he had the romantic proposal, and he wrote these amazing wedding vows. We had a great wedding. So, yeah, I think that a quality guy handles a breakup in a really dignified way.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that you have the happy ending, sort of like you have the nice bookends, how you had this struggle, this personal struggle, trying to find, or maybe fine-tune is a better word to use, fine-tune kind of your man picker, so to speak.
Yes.
And it took a while, but you got it, and you got the happy ending.
I did, and my daughters have all got really nice boyfriends, and yeah, that was really important. That was my litmus test.
All right, so Marni, where can people find you?
They can go to datingwithdignity.com, and they can get a copy of the book.
Yeah. Now check out this book. I can't say enough good things about it. My wife and I actually both read it. I think you gave us like an advanced copy before you went live, and it was pretty phenomenal. She's really open. Like, you're really open about some stuff that's not easy to talk about. And it's interesting to
Yeah.
hear the struggles you went through. So it's something I definitely recommend that people should check out. But where can they go to check it out? The Dating with Dignity website, but where on the website? Just so we're very specific.
There's like a little pop-up box that will come up that will say, do you want to get that book? And if you, even if you're not so interested in my story, but it is dirty and juicy, there's also those 33 places, the gold mines, where you could like go out tomorrow and like just change it up and find some quality men.
And the book is free. So this is
It's
not going
free.
to cost you anything.
Right. So
And
definitely get it.
this is a person who's written for Yahoo, who's written for Your Tango, who's been featured on TV. This woman knows her stuff.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anything you want to say before we sign off?
You know, I just love that I get to be on a show about, you know, about exes because I got a lot in my past. And I would say this is that when I look back at my exes, they were the worst, best things that ever happened to me.
Learning experiences.
Yep, because they catapulted me forward in what I needed to do and how I needed to change and grow so I could be my best self to attract a great quality guy into my life. And so if you can just shift into it instead of being like, you know, I'm never going to get through this, to like, this could be the best, worst thing that happens to me. And how are you going to use it to make your life better?
Love it.
You know, that's the gift. Your ex gave you a freaking gift, and you have this show and you have support. And so, you know, hold your shoulders up. Don't let it define you. And love is totally right around the corner.
Yeah, it's a great way to end, I think. You have such a really elegant way of putting things.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Okay.